Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of The Seeker. You know how our community demands so much from our youth. We look up to our elders, but sometimes it seems they don't understand that times can and do change. With those changing times come different challenges. Young adults should take advantage of the experience and mentorship of their seniors. However, they also have to be able to navigate this world on their own. At Seekers Institute, we provide a path to transformation for young adults just beginning their journey, as well as for those who have already embarked on their paths. In fact, my guest today is a collaborator at Seekers, and a young one at that. We'll explore the challenges she's gone through when it comes to figuring out a career, navigating family, and finding inspiration in an unforgiving world. My hope is that our guest can inspire a generation closer to hers. So, let's meet our guest. Welcome back to The Seeker. I am your host, Arshad Anwar, and I'm joined today with my guest, a fellow collaborator at the Seekers Institute, the Clarity Consul, Dania Ibrahim. Assalamu alaikum, Dania.
Wa alaikum assalam. It's a joy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on. Why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, what you do, what you like to do? Who is Dania Ibrahim?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm currently a fourth-year neuroscience major at the Georgia Institute of Technology, minoring in health and medical sciences and Middle Eastern studies. I'm very integrated into the research world, have been working in research for the last couple of years. And then outside of the realm of academia and school, I'm very interested in playing guitar, connecting to my community, public speaking, and hiking as well. So I really love being outdoors, and some of the ways that those hobbies show up is in performances, in jam sessions with my friends, in hikes through the Appalachian Mountains, as I've mentioned, and also in being involved in TEDxGeorgia Tech and public speaking communities like that.
All right. Wow. So what's the coolest place you've ever been on a hike?
Ooh, probably outside of Georgia. I really enjoyed this one hike that I did in California called Potato Chip Rock.
Potato Chip Rock. Okay.
Potato Chip. And it's because at the top of this hike, you go to a little ledge that looks like a potato chip in a picture. And so it's a very fun picture spot for people to pretend like they're falling off of a cliff when it's actually not as dangerous as it looks in the photo.
Okay.
And it's a nice, like very rigorous, very deserty feeling kind of hike. And that one was really special for me because I got to do it with my cousins, and it's kind of like the spot to go to when I go hike in California.
Oh, wow. Amazing, amazing. You mentioned you are in Georgia Tech, and you know, when young people are applying to colleges, right? They're getting out of high school, applying to colleges. What is that like when you have an endless possibility of schools to be applying to? You know, how did you end up choosing Georgia Tech?
Yeah, so the way that I chose Georgia Tech was actually a bit of a funny story. I chose colleges very differently than a lot of other people. While a lot of people look at like which school has the perfect major for me and what school's vibe do I fit in, and let me go visit that campus and really see how I feel there. That was such a foreign concept to me. I had no idea that people did that. I had no idea that was a part of the process. I actually only applied to two schools.
Two schools.
Two schools. One of them was very risky. I applied to Early Decision Emory's full scholarship program. Did not get into that. And then also applied to Georgia Tech. And the reason for that was that I wanted to stay in Georgia near my family for my college years. I was born and raised here, have always been around this community. And also all three of my older brothers went to Georgia Tech. And so we were very much a Georgia Tech family. My family joked and they were like, Dania, we already have the shirts and the merchandise from Georgia Tech. Just make it easy for us. We don't have to buy any new shirts. And luckily it's such an amazing school to have nearby too. So an awesome opportunity that I didn't even have to look that far from near my hometown to really find an awesome place to be. So that was where choosing Georgia Tech really came from. And I went in not knowing what I would love about that school, just knowing that it was a good opportunity near home and that my brothers enjoyed their experience there, but really ended up loving it for so many more reasons and really finding my own niche. And I think looking back, even if I went to different schools to visit, I really think I would have ended up at Georgia Tech.
All right.
Yeah.
So what was your major?
My major is neuroscience.
Okay.
I actually didn't enter as neuroscience though. I applied to Georgia Tech as a biology major. And that was mainly because I thought that I was going to be going to med school. That's where the health and medical sciences minor comes from as well. But a little funny story as well, when I went to open house for Georgia Tech, they mentioned there's this new major, neuroscience. You know, if you want a free switch into it, you don't even have to wait until the school year starts, whereas for most other switches, you have to wait until the school year starts.
Okay.
And so went ahead and did my switch into it and, you know, never looked back. It ended up being the perfect decision for me, thankfully.
So did you go into college with a different major in mind and then you switched? Now, how common is it that people are not fully decided on a major when they're going into college?
I think it's fairly common. I think it's hard to know exactly what you want to do and what you want to study right out of high school. And I think that there's also this kind of like rigid mentality about it, that whatever I choose is going to be what I end up doing for the rest of my life. And do I want to do biology for the rest of my life? I mean, I really have seen that kind of mentality. I worked as an orientation leader, and a lot of people came in, they're like, I chose this because I think it'll get me to this place, but I have no idea how I feel about it. So that is a very common mentality. And it's hard. It really is hard to find that niche for yourself so early on. Whereas in high school, we're constantly doing several different subjects at once, and then going into this world that a lot of your studies and classes will revolve around this one major. It's a hard decision, and it's definitely one to be taken seriously, but it doesn't quite have to be so rigid where you know that what you choose when you're applying to college is going to change your 4 years of college and change your world and change your life for all the years to come. But yeah, I definitely have seen a lot of people struggle with it, and it definitely, that's something that I really like to talk to people about. Is, how can you go about making that decision? How can you think about what major that you want to do? Because it is a big decision.
What made you made your decision for neuroscience?
Yeah, so for me, like I mentioned before, I was doing the biology mostly because I thought that I wanted to go to med school at the time, and I was like, this is a pretty, straight pathway. They're going all the prelims all the prerequisites that I need to go to med school are right here in this major. But I honestly didn't have a passion for biology. And so when they mentioned neuroscience, it was immediately like, okay, well, this is a realm that I enjoy. This is, I love science. I love the human body. I love learning about the brain in particular. I love understanding people's neurological makeup and in turn their psychological, their psychology and how they act in response to it. And so it seemed like a perfect fit for me. And I also knew that it also held those prerequisites for the future that I wanted at the time. So it still fit in there, but it was a much bigger interest to me. And I also didn't have to take ecology. So that was a plus of switching out of biology.
Plus, yeah.
plus, absolutely. And so it seemed like an easy decision to me because I knew, despite the fact that I was looking at this future goal and knew that it had the prereqs and knew that I could fit that into the major well, at the end of the day for me, it was, I am so interested in the human brain. This is going to be so much fun to study.
What's so interesting about the human brain?
The human brain, I love having a better understanding of the way people work. You've known me for the last couple of years, and I love human beings. Period. That is my passion in life, human beings, and the way that they think and the way that they work and the way that their neurological makeup makes them act in a certain way, and how that shows up in their psychology, how human behavior is related to other people's behavior, and that brings us into the whole realm of sociology. So this whole world of sociology, psychology, and starting at that base, that base science of neuroscience, so interesting.
So speaking about how the brain works, right? I'm going to pick your brain a little bit. What were you thinking when you have two majors that are related to the health field, and then one that's completely unrelated?
So the Middle Eastern Studies minor for me was really about fun first, and later it also delved into what I want to do long term. So the fun came from just seeing Arabic classes. That's my native language, and I am Palestinian. I'm from the Middle East. And so being able to have classes where I learn about Arabic from an academic standpoint seemed awesome to me. Being able to communicate with people better, getting to improve upon those skills sounded wonderful to me. And just being able to then take later classes that had to do with Middle Eastern politics and men and women in Islam gives me credibility to work in these spheres in the future. And so my hope is to continue working with Middle Easterners and work on Middle Eastern causes. And my hope is to be able to have this academic background to really give me the credibility in front of people that aren't in the Arab community, in front of people that aren't in the Islamic community, and really get to speak from that more unbiased and academic, factually speaking standpoint.
It's amazing how what you're talking about is basically incorporating a very personal part of yourself into your college life. And for, people out there that are going to be in college soon, that are, young high schoolers that are graduating, or people that are already kind of a year or two in. Is that something they can do? Can they make, or take a part of themselves and add it to their college experience?
Absolutely. And I think it's necessary to be able to use your interests and add them to your college experience. I think that's the only way you can have a very fulfilling time in college and really set yourself up for a successful future. I know that there's a lot that goes into that. It's hard to choose a career based on just your interests sometimes, and sometimes that might not be what you want to do, or sometimes that's not feasible. But I think you always have to take that into account, and you can't shy away from it. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I give to people going into college is you have no idea what the job market looks like. There are certain careers that we grew up learning about, doctor, engineer, lawyer, etc.
The basics.
The basics. Yeah. But there are so many things outside of those realms that people would maybe have no idea about until they got into college. And so just being able to capitalize upon those interests, you can think about what you want to do long term. You can think about, okay, maybe would this become a marketable skill? Would I be able to propel my future off of this? But I always encourage people to at least have some linkage of their interests and what they're studying in college and what they want to do long term. Because at the end of the day, your interests are what are going to keep you studying, are going to keep you interested in your job, keep you propelling forward. And that's necessary. If I didn't have an interest in neuroscience, then when I decided I didn't want to be a doctor, it would have been so hard for me to continue studying this. If I had chosen it only because it was going to help me become a doctor and get those prerequisites, I don't know how I would have continued to feel so much passion about my learning and then eventually find the career that I did, that I'm considering going into now. And so just being able to capitalize upon those interests, really, it's integral to being able to push yourself forward and continue learning and just enjoy that process. And a lot of times that ends up working out into your long-term goals as well.
Amazing. Let's change the gears here a little bit and let's talk about family. Right. So you mentioned 3 brothers, by the way, earlier. Yep. Are you the youngest in this family?
I am the baby. I'm the youngest by 5 years.
Wow. So what is it like having 3 older brothers?
Having 3 older brothers is a joy, but it also makes you learn how to roll with the punches at an early age. I had to learn how to be one of the boys, how to really toughen up in response to a lot of things that we would do and say. But I really think it is what made me the person that I am today, getting to have their influence and getting to be the softer one of the group and try and soften them, but also learn from their strength as well.
And you talk about family a lot, right? And you do public speaking, you've done interfaith gatherings. What advice would you give, young people that are going into college? And again, we don't want to just focus on career, we're focused on family now. But as you're transitioning from home into life away from home, how important is it to still hold on to your family in that moment?
Oh, it's absolutely the most important thing to hold on to your family while you're still going through it. At the end of the day, your family is your home base. It is your core, and it is what you go back to. And one of the things that's really challenging in that time is as you transition, you think you're also transitioning away from your family, but it's not quite that. You don't transition away from your family. You just have to transition with them. Your family dynamics will have to change when you go to college and when you grow up and become an adult in general. And a lot of times that comes with a lot of compromise and communication where parents will want a certain thing, you want a certain thing out of your relationship, but just in understanding the importance of it, you're better able to transition and try and find communicate a way to really still have that relationship, even in a changing time of your life. And so my advice to anybody is just recognize how much your family loves you, how much your family wants you to succeed, and that watching you grow as much as they want you to grow, there's always going to be a part of a parent's heart that wants to hold on to you. And you have to remember that even when it's frustrating that you want to grow up and you want to be viewed as an adult, you have to remember where your family is coming from and that they raised you, they saw you go from a seedling into an adult, and watching you really become your own person is something that parents have to be able to encourage and support as a part of healthy relationships in the family, but also just remembering yourself that while you're transitioning to this new state, parents are having to transition as well. Adulthood is a change for both of you. There's a role that they play in life that is having to change. And so just recognizing where they're coming from and having empathy towards them is so important, in remembering that they helped you get to where you are right now, and that core will continue to be there. It'll just have to change in its own ways as you change and as you grow.
Yeah, and we may be talking to a younger audience to understand this perspective, but it's so important for parents to understand as well, right? That they need to recognize within themselves that they're going through this change, because there can be some behaviors where they might try to overreach and not let their child grow up. So it's important you bring that up from that perspective. And I just want to throw that in there from the other perspective, that, you know, parents also have to recognize that change that's taken place. You know, speaking of parents, you know, obviously we know about the passing of your father. May Allah have mercy on him. We always make dua for him. What has helped you with the loss of your father?
There's two main things that have helped me with the loss of my father. The number one is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just this recognition that this life is not permanent, and that we are passing through it. We are travelers in this life, and you know, he passed very peacefully, and he's with God now. And that's a place all of us want to be, with God. That's, you know, at the end of this day, we have to remember that we're not here forever, and that's a natural portion of life, and that's something that God has told us. And I know that he's with him, and that's something that really brings me peace, is just knowing that he's in a better place. As quintessential as that saying is, he is in a better place. He's with God, he's at peace, and that's what matters most. And that's the fate that all of us will have to face. And so I find gratitude in the way that he passed, even that he passed peacefully, and he passed at an older age in his life, and that I got to have time with him, and that it was his time to pass. God has a time for all of us. And gosh, I'm so grateful that he had his time here on earth, and that we had our time with him, and that when he passed, it was painless and it was quick. And you can't really ask for anything better than that. So that really gives me peace. And the second thing is community. Alhamdulillah, we had a lot of family and a lot of family friends around during the time that he passed. And I think in those couple days after, I was reached out to more people than I had ever heard from in my entire life. And people that I hadn't spoken to for years still came and supported me, and shared sweet messages and prayed for him. And that was really what got me through that time, getting connected to people and see that people really are there for you in your times of need, and seeing people that don't even have to be there for me really show up. So that was particularly special. So
faith and community, that's what helped you get through. You know, it's really important that people understand the resources they have, including the faith and the community that can help them go full circle with their grief. And we're lucky at Seekers Institute, alhamdulillah, we have a grief specialist as one of our collaborators, Sister Umnia. And you know, there's something for our viewers, our clients, to take advantage of, so that whenever they have these experiences in their life, they can go through that process in the best possible way. What's next for Dania Ibrahim?
What's next for Dania is I'm actually going to be moving across the country.
Oh no!
I know, a true shame. And pursuing my PhD in experimental psychology at the University of California, San Diego, where I'll be doing research on education impact and learning methodology effectiveness, and really hoping to get into that field of research-backed education. Well, you know what? We're all really proud of you. I'm really proud of you. I've known you for a long time. As long as I've been an imam, I think, in the community. I always look to you when it comes to advising our younger generation, because you're really close to that, you know, that crowd. That's where you're now starting that next step in your life, and so you're really close to, you know, kids that are in college. They're going to be making these important decisions. We like to end the show with giving our viewers practical advice. So, what is one tip that you can give, you know, young people out there that are either getting into college or already into college, are struggling to figure out what they want to do with the rest of their lives, are wondering if this is where I have to make all these decisions in the first place? What is one advice you can give them that they can just, right after watching this, really utilize to calm themselves down? Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the most calming one, but the best piece of advice that I have is take every single piece of advice, including this one, with a grain of salt. Wow. Truly, because what's going to work for you is going to be different than what works for somebody else. When people look at college, for example, some people will look at a certain major and say, that's way too hard. Everybody hates that major, after hearing from one or two people that don't like that major. And they'll take that so to heart that they'll steer away from an opportunity that might have been really good for them. So take every single thing you hear about a class, about a professor, about a major, about what you want to do in life, with a grain of salt. It's always so good to look at different sources of information, do your research, talk to different people that are involved in the field that you might be interested in, or talk to different people that have expertise in whatever challenge that you're having, whatever it may be, and make sure that you don't stick with just what one person is saying all the time. It doesn't always steer you in the right direction because everybody's circumstances are so individualized. Of course, like what works for you, as I said, will not work for somebody else. And so remember that the people that will be loud on ratemyprofessor.com will be the people that love a professor or hate a professor. And that 85% of people that are right in the middle won't be the ones speaking out. And remember that those perspectives exist out there. And for anything that you look at, whether you're looking in the news, once again, when you're choosing on a professor, choosing a career path, remember that there is different sources of information, and it's up to you to be able to critically look at those different sources and see what works best for you with your individualized circumstances. So take everything you hear with a grain of salt, including what I just said.
That's amazing. There's what you just described is, it's a good balance between, relying on people for help and guidance like family and mentors, etc., but also having the ability to be confident and independent with your own future.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dania, for being on the show. It was a pleasure, and I hope this won't be the last time. Maybe we can drag you out after you go to California, pull you back here, and have you on for another one.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to continue to be involved and continue chatting with you and the rest of the Seekers team. Thank you so much for having me.
And we'll be right back with my closing thoughts. Here's a sneak peek of next week's episode.
Get to know the things that you're good at and the things that you're not so good at. And accept yourself, not for what you wish that you could be, but who you actually are.
Our guest today spoke about her experience navigating the next step of her life after high school. She gave real guidance to our young adult viewers who are nervous about that upcoming phase of their life. Hopefully, she also gave important insight for parents to better understand what their adult children will be going through. We have a teaching in our faith that guides us to be playful with our children for the first 7 years of their life, to discipline and educate them for the next 7, and then after that, to be a friend to them. As we grow, we need to learn how to be responsibly independent. For many of our kids, that is the age when they are headed off to college, or not to college, but some other avenue in life. At Seekers Institute, we help people realize their goals and their potential and help them make a plan to achieve them. It's never too early nor too late to have this realization. So, now that you know, Seekers Institute can show you how.